So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the AQA GCSE Higher Maths paper of November 2018, paper 1, which was the non-calculator paper. So let's get started on this November 2018 Higher GCSE paper 1. So let's scroll down to question 1. So question 1 says simplify 5 to the power 4 all being squared. Now here all we need to do is just multiply the two powers. So that's 4 times 2, which is 5 to the power of 8, which is our second option. Question 2 says circle the volume in centimetre cubed the cylinder with a radius of 5 and a height of 8. Now to work out the volume of a cylinder, and if I just label the parts, it's going to be the radius pi times the radius squared times h. So if the radius is 5, then that's going to be pi times 25 times 8, which gives me 200 pi. Looking at question 3, it says simplify 16a squared divided by a plus 3 lots of a times 2. Now simplifying this first bit is going to give me 16a, and then plus 3a times 2, so if I then multiply this out, it's going to give me 6a. So I've got 16a plus 6a gives me 22a, which is our first option. Moving on to question 4, it says circle the value of cos 30, and the exact value of cos 30 is root 3 over 2. Now question 5 says work out 8.5 divided by 2 and 2/3. So the first thing I want to do is convert each of these mixed number fractions into improper fractions. So that's going to be 17 over 2, and 2 and 2/3 is going to be 8 over 3. So from this, what I want to do is 17 over 2 divided by 8 over 3. So again, remembering the rule is that we keep the second fraction, we flip the second fraction and keep the first one and change division into a multiplying. So I've got 3 over 8, and that then will obviously then become 17 times 3, which is 51 over 16, and it's asked the question to be written as a mixed number, which gives me 3 and 3/16. So moving on to question 6, is that a ship is sailing in a straight line from its home port. The distance time graph shows 4 hours of the journey, and the question is asking us to work out the speed of the ship during these 4 hours. Now speed is equal to distance divided by time. So the first thing I need to do is work out the distance travelled. And how do I do that? Well, I can see that each of these little small boxes adds up to 4, so that's going to be at 48. And that it goes all the way up to 116, so then it's going to be 116 minus 48, which again, if I just quickly work it out without using a calculator, in which I get 8 and 68, so then speed is going to be equal to 68 divided by 4. And again, if I work 68 divided by 4, it's going to give me 17. So the final answer is 17 miles per hour. Moving on to question 7, it says the sum of angles in any quadrilateral is 360 degrees. And for example, in a rectangle, we've got 4 times 90, which is 360. Zach writes 5 times 90 is 450. So the sum of angles in any pentagon must be 450. So for this, again, it's going to be a case of, is he correct? Well, the answer is going to be a resounding no. And the reason for that is because angles, or the sum of angles I should write, as the sum of angles inside a pentagon equal, and it's going to be 5 minus 2 times 180, so it's 3 times 180, which equals to 540. So anything along those lines should get you the correct answer. Also, you could also argue with that again that the interior angles of a pentagon, a regular pentagon, add up to 108. So again, something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 8, it says that Kim works at an airport in the UK. She records the number of planes landing between 10 and 2 p.m. each day. The table shows the data for the first 10 days in January. So again, what we need to say is the airport is affected by fog on one of these days. Which day do you think it was? And give your reason for this. So if a runway is affected by fog, we're going to have less planes. So here we're just looking for the one that stands out in terms of the least. So it's going to be day 8, because there is a huge reduction in planes landing. So something along those lines. Other acceptable answers would be day 8, as all the other days were over 140, whereas 8 is just 102. 8 is an anomaly, so it's one that obviously stands out. You could say there's a big drop or big reduction, as we've written down, on the number of planes that arrived. And again, there's lots of other variations of what I've just said that will get you the mark. So looking at question 8b, it says that Kim uses the data to predict how many planes will land at the airport. In her method, she uses an estimate of 150 planes in a 4-hour period throughout the day. Assume all the same number of planes land each day. Work out her prediction. So what I want to do is work out how many 4-hour periods there are per day. So that's going to be 24 divided by 4, which gives me 6. Then if I do 6 times 150, that gives me an answer of 900. So there are 900 planes landing per day. So then what I then need to do is, if I then multiply that by 7, then what that then gives me is going to give me 6,300 planes per week. And then if I then multiply that by 52, so I've got 6,300 multiplied by 52, in which then you can do this in several ways in which you can do it. You can do the column way, you can do the grid way, but again what it should have is an answer of 327,600 planes. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. For question 8c, it says in fact fewer planes land in the winter and then in the summer, fewer planes land at night than during the day. What does this tell you about Kim's prediction? Well, for this, all we then need to state is that her prediction could be too high, or it could be too low. Now the reason for this is because there are fewer landings in the winter. That would make it too low. So with fewer landings in the winter, this would bring the total down, but fewer landings at night would make her prediction too high. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 9, it says that the square root of 6 squared plus 8 squared equals the cube root of 125a cubed. We want to work out the value of a. So in terms of working out the square root of this, well, that's going to be the square root of 36 plus 64, which is the square root of 100. And then if I then look at the cube root of 125a cubed, well, the cube root of 125 is 5, and the cube root of a cubed is just a. So here what we get is 10 is equal to 5a, which therefore means that a equals 2. Question 10 says work out the percentage increase from 80 to 280. Well, to work out the percentage increase, it's the difference divided by the original multiplied by 100. So here the difference between the two numbers is 200. Divide that by the original amount, which was 80. So let's get rid of that. And we multiply the answer by 100. Now simplifying this, we've got 80 divided by 8. So all of them got to do is do 20 divided by 2, which is 10, divided by 2 again, which is 5, divide that again, which is by 2, which is 2.5, and then 2.5 times 100 is going to give me 250%. Next, question 11, it says here are 4 triangles. Which 2 triangles are congruent? So here the chances are going to be A and D. And the reason for that is if I look at where the 8 centimeters is, the 8 centimeter on D is on the line that connects the 2 angles together. And likewise, the 8 centimeters on A also connects the 2 angles labeled as well. Now moving on to question 12, it says solve this quadratic equation. So that's going to be, think of 2 numbers that multiply together give me 12, added together give me 1. So that's going to be 4 and 3. And it's going to be minus 4 and plus 3 because we want a negative 1 as our answer, and that equals 0. So then my 2 answers are that x equals minus 3 or positive 4. The next question, question 13, it says that e to f is 2 to 3 and f to g is in the ratio of 5 to 4. So for this, all we then need to do to work this out is, well, if I have e to f and I have f to g, so e to f is 2 to 3 and f to g is 5 to 4. Now if I then triple, let's say, multiply these 2 numbers by 5, I'm going to get 10 and I'm going to get 15. And if I multiply this by 3, then I'm going to get 15 to 12. And then the question is asking me to write e to g. Well, e to g is going to be 10 to 12. And if I then simplify 10 to 12, that's going to give me 5 to 6. So looking at question 14, it says that A and B are 2 events. Some probabilities are shown on the Venn diagram. And the question is asking us to work out the probability of not A or B. Now, in order for us to work this question out, all I then need to do is shade the individual areas. So not A is all of this, so everything apart from that circle of A. And B is this circle here. Now for OR, what I want is I want to add up all the probabilities of the areas that I do not know. So first things first, what I need to do is work this out, and I do this by doing 1 take away 0.3 minus 0.15 take away by 0.35, and I get the answer of 0. And that's going to be, and let's just quickly add this up, 0.45 plus 0.35 gives me 0.8, so that must mean that this probability is 0.2. So then to work out the answer of this, all I need to do is simply add the shaded probabilities up. So I've got 0.15 plus 0.35 plus 0.2 gives me an answer of 0.7. Now looking at question 15, it says in a survey, queuing times at a supermarket checkouts were recorded. One morning, samples of 50 customers were taken from supermarkets A, B, C and D. Box what represents the data. Now it then says on average which supermarket had the lowest queuing times. Well, that's going to be C, and the reason for that is because it has the lowest median value, and if I wanted to quote that, that would be 4 minutes. Then part B then says which supermarket where the queuing times are more consistent. So for consistency, we're looking at which box has the smallest, which box plot has the smallest narrower box, and that's going to be B. Because it has the smallest interquartile range. And if you want to then quote what the interquartile range is, so for this it is an interquartile range of 2 minutes, that would be absolutely fine. For question 16, it says circle the number that is closest to the value of 29 cubed. Now 29 is roughly 30. So what I need to do is I need to work out what 30 times 30 times 30 is. Now 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, and I've got 3 zeros, so it's going to be 27,000. The next question then says work out the exact value of 3/4 to the power of minus 3. So here, if I deal with the minus first, then that's going to become 4 over 3 because we just simply flip the fractions, and then all I then need to do is cube the two numbers. So 4 cubed is 64 and 3 cubed is 27, and there is my final answer. So it's 64 over 27. Oh, I wrote 3 there. Just change that, and there we go. So looking at question 18, it says that Beth and Mia translate documents from Spanish to English. A set of documents that would take Beth 8 days would take Mia 10 days. Beth starts to translate the documents after 2 days. Beth and Mia both work on translating the documents. How many more days will it take to complete the work? You must show your working out. So for this, let's have a look. So after 2 days, then what we find is that a quarter of the job is done, leaving 3/4 left, because a quarter, like if Beth is working 2 days and it would have taken her 8 days to finish, and then she's done a quarter. The reason for that, if I just write equals a quarter. So what we then need to do is look at calculating the total combined effort. So the total combined effort rate is going to be 1/8 plus 1/10, which if I then have a common denominator to work this out, so here a common denominator is going to be 40, so it's going to be 5/40 plus 4/40, which gives me 9/40. So from this, what I then need to do is multiply or divide 3/4 of the job divided by 9/40, which then becomes 3/4 times 40/9. 3 times 40 is 120, and 4 times 6 is 36. And then from this I can then divide it by 2, so I've got 60/18, which then gives me, divide both numbers by 6, I get 10/3, so it's going to be 3 1/3 days. Or they probably, I would say that they probably allow 4 days, because obviously if you're just counting whole days to nearest day. Question 19, it says that in a chess club there are X boys and Y girls. If 5 more boys and 8 more girls join in, then there will be half as many boys as there are girls. Now to try and translate this, so if we had 5 boys that joined, so X plus 5 equals, and so then if I then have half as many boys as there are girls, if I multiply that by 2, then I would have the same amount of girls, which have been where 8 have joined. So what I've got is I've got this situation here. Now if I expand the brackets, I get 2x plus 10 equals, that should be a y, not an x. End up with y plus 8. Then if I take the 8 over, I get 2x plus 2 equals y. And there I've proved what they've asked me to show. Then it says if instead 10 more boys and 1 girl join, then there would be the same number of boys as there are girls. Now to try and translate that into algebra, I've got x plus 10 equals y plus 1. And they both would give us the same. Now if I neaten this line up, then what I end up with is I end up with x minus y equals minus 9. Well, actually, if I make y, I need to solve this quadratic equation. Simultaneous equation. So if I then rearrange this to make y the subject, I've got that y equals x plus 9. Now from this, what I can then do is I've got, from my answer in part A, I've got 2x plus 2. If I then take away the two things, I end up with 0 equals minus x plus 7. So x is going to equal minus 7. And, oh no, positive 7 rather. And if x equals 7, using y equals x plus 9, then y is going to equal 7 plus 9, which is 16. Moving on to question 20, it says that P, Q, and R and S are points on a circle where P, X, R, and Q, X, S are straight lines where P, Q is equal to S, X. And the question is asking us to prove that Y, S, Q, S is not the diameter of the circle. So if QS was the diameter, then angle, then basically QPS would equal 90 degrees. And that's from circle theorem. So what I'll do is then prove to see what this is. So here, this angle here is going to be 180 minus 50 divided by 2, which is 130, which is 65. And that's 65. Now if that's 65, this angle here, again because it's on a straight line, is going to be 130. This angle here is, well, that angle there is going to be 27 because of a bow. Because angle subtended at the corner is going to be the same, so this angle here is going to be 27, and 27 plus 65 is not equal to 90. So that would be why this is not, PQS is not the diameter of a circle. Now moving on to question 21, it says here are the first four terms of a quadratic sequence, work out the expression of the nth term. So for this, what I need to do is work out what the double difference is between these numbers. So here I've got the difference between 11 and 26 is 15. Difference between here is 19. Then it's going to be 23. So the double difference is 4. So that means that 2n squared is in the formula. Now 2n squared, if I then work that out, so if n is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 squared is 1, times 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4, times 2 is 8. 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18, and 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 is 32. And what I then want to do is compare that to the numbers in the sequence of 11, 26, 45, and 68. Now looking at the difference between these two numbers here, well, that's going to be plus 9. That's going to be plus 14, or 16 rather, plus 18, what we're talking about. Then here we've got 2 is plus 27. And then here we've got plus 36. So here what you can see is I then need to work out the nth term of these. So as you can see, that's going up. So the difference is 9, 18, 27, 36, which is 9n. So here, what I then need to do is work out the quadratic sequence, which is going to be 2n squared plus 9n. Now moving on to our next question, what we find is with question 22. So this is algebraic fractions, and what we want to do is we want to solve this equation. So first things first, what I need to do is get a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be x plus 4, x minus 2. So to do that, I need to multiply this first fraction by the second denominator, which is x minus 2, and the second numerator by the first denominator. What I've got is that. Then if I neaten up the top, I get x squared minus 2x plus 7x plus 28, all divided by x plus 4. What I'm doing there. X plus 4, x minus 2 equals 1. And if I take these two double brackets over to the other side and neaten the top, I get x squared plus 5x plus 28 equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. And then take everything all onto one side. So let's just take everything of this all onto one side, in which my x squareds cancel. And then all I'm left with is 5x take away 2x, which is 3x. 28 plus 8 is going to give me 36 equals 0. So take the 36 over to the side, so I end up with 3x equals minus 36. So x equals minus 12. That there is my final answer. So looking at question 23, it says prism A and B are similar. The cross-sectional areas are shaded, and we've got prism A, which has a volume of 480, and prism B, which has a length of 30. Now the area of the cross-section area of A is in the ratio of area of the cross-section of B to the ratio of 4 to 9, and the question is asking us to work out the area of the cross-section of B. Now for this, what we need to first do is, if the area scale factors are 4 to 9, then the length scale factor ratio is going to be the square root of that, which is 2 to 3. Now from this, what I can then do is work out then what the volume is going to be. So if I then do 30 divided by the scale factor, which in this case is going to be 3, and then multiply that by 2, I get an answer of 20. Then from this 20, what I then need to do is do 480, which is the volume of prism A, divided by 20, which gives me 24. And then from this 24, all I then need to do is 24 divided by 4, and then multiply it by 9 because I want 9 parts. And if I work that out, I then get an answer of 54. Moving on to question 24, which looks at surds. It says show that 2 root 6 over root 5 minus root 3 over 10 can be written in this form. So first things first, let's get a common denominator. So here we've got a common denominator of multiplying by root 2. So if I multiply this fraction by root 2, then what I end up is with root 12 over root 10 minus root 3 over root 10. So then that then becomes, now root 12 is root 4 times root 3, which is 2 root 3. So then how I can write this is then 4 root 3 minus root 3 over root 10. Then if I multiply by root 10 over root 10 to rationalise the denominator, I get 4 root 30 minus root 30 equals 10. And 4 root 30 minus 1 root 30 gives me 3 root 30 over 10. And there is my final answer. Just got to think, can I write 30? No, I can't. So then that there is going to give me my final answer. So looking at question 25, so the quadratic curves intersects the axes at minus 3, 0, 3, 0 and 0, 18. And the question is asking us to work out the equation of the curve. Now for this we know that the equation of the curve is a quadratic, so it's going to follow ax squared plus bx plus c equals y. Now we know that obviously it's x squared is going to have a negative coefficient because obviously it's like an n shape, but let's then just substitute the numbers. So when x equals minus 3, y equals 0, so what I end up with is minus 3 squared a plus minus 3b plus c, and that equals 0. So simplifying this, we get 9a minus 3b plus c equals 0. So that's one equation that we've got. The next one we've then got when x equals 3, y equals 0. So again, substituting it in, I get 3 squared a plus 3b plus c equals 0. So substituting that in, I get 9a plus 3b plus c equals 0. And there's my second equation. And then using the last one, when x equals, let's use different colour, so when x equals 0, y equals 18. So everything's going to disappear in this apart from c. So c equals 18. So there I've got one of my values. So I can cross c and make that equal to 18. Now if I do the same, then what I end up with is two simultaneous equations. So I've got 9a minus 3b equals minus 18. And I've also got 9a plus 3b equals minus 18. So then substituting numbers in from this, I take away the two numbers or add them, whichever you prefer. Let's go for add. So here I end up with 18a, that then disappears. I end up with minus 18 plus minus 18, which gives me minus 36. So a equals minus 2. And then when a equals minus 2, c equals 18. If I substitute to any of the equations, I get b equals 0. So that therefore means that if the equation of the line was y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, then y equals a, which is minus 2, so it's minus 2x squared, b, which is 0, which disappears, plus 18. So I can write the answer as either y equals minus 2x squared plus 18, or I can write it as 18 minus 2x squared equals y. Whichever floats your boat is entirely up to you. So looking at question 26, it says the area of this triangle is 25 root 3, and the question is asking us to work out the value of w. Now in order to work out the value of w, I need to use the cosine rule, but I also need to find x first. So what I need to do is find x. Now to find x, what I've got to do is use the area of the triangle, which has been given to me. So I'm going to use half AB sine C equals 25 root 3. Now labelling a triangle, if that's capital C, this is going to be A and this is going to be my B. So what I've got is I've got 0.5 times, well, let's write it as a fraction actually because it's going to be easier when working on non-calculated paper. I've got a half times A, which is x, times B, which is 20, times sine 60 equals 25 root 3. Now in terms of knowing what sine 60 is, well, sine 60 in its exact value is root 3 over 2. So multiply that by 20 times x times a half, and that all equals 25 root 3. Now if I neaten up this left hand side, what I end up with is a sore neck, but it's going to be 20x root 3 all over 4 equals 25 root 3. So from this, if I take the 4 over, I end up with 20x root 3 equals 100 root 3. Then I can cancel the root 3's because I've both got root 3's. And what I've got is I've got 20x equals 100, so x equals 5. So I can write that as 5. So from this, what I can then do is use the cosine rule. So using that a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2b, I don't know why I've run x there, so let's just get rid of that. Save confusion, 2bc cos a. Now relabeling this triangle, what I end up with was I know that x is now 5 centimeters. So this is going to be my a, so that's my little a. This is going to be my b, and that's going to be my little c. So such as I get w squared equals, and it's going to be b squared, which is 25, plus c squared, which is going to be 400, minus 2 times 5 times 20 times cos 60. Now if I just neaten all this up, I get 425 minus, and then it's going to be 2 times 5, which is 10, times 20, which is 200, and cos 60, if I'm not mistaken, is a half. So then what I've got is I've got 425 minus 100, so then equals 325. So what I've then got is that w squared equals the square root of 325. So, equals 325, not square root. So then w equals the square root of 325. And then I can then simplify this square root. So I've got 25 times, and how many 25s go into 325? Well, that's just going to be 13. So then what do I get as my final answer is I get that w equals 5 root 13. That's going to be in centimeters if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's it. Now for question 27, it says here is a sketch of y equals cos x for the values of x is between 0 and 360. Now alpha is an acute angle and cos alpha equals k. Now the question relates to graph transformation, so the question is asking you to circle the value of cos 180 minus alpha. Now here when you're adding 180, what you're doing is you're shifting the graph. So if we shifted the graph by 180 minus alpha, then what happens is that the graph will look like this. Now here, if we look at where alpha is, that's going to be there, and so therefore we are looking for a minus k value, so that's where this comes in. For question 27b, the question says we're moving it 360 degrees. Now if we imagine that we're shifting this graph 360 degrees, then the graph will just be its original form, so therefore alpha will just equal positive k. And that concludes the end of this paper. Now we'll put the grade boundaries in the description below so you can see what your total score adds up to and what grade you've attained on this individual paper.